Shalom Chavrim, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live, and there's a lot of things going on today, guys, just to try to bring you up to speed, and I'm sure I'm missing out on a few things as I go here. But Russia says that they're moving the S-300 defense system has already been delivered to Syria. Now, anybody that's been watching this knows that Prime Minister Netanyahu has stated on more than one occasion that that is Israel's red line, and they have vowed to destroy any type of missile system of this nature that would be delivered in the inside of Syria. And I actually reached out and sent a message to Prime Minister Netanyahu on his Twitter page, asking the question, to try to get a comment from the Prime Minister on how they view this. I already know his stance from what I've seen in the statements in the past, but of course my thought is too, does Syria not have a right to defend their own territory, just like Israel? I've always maintained that Israel has a right to defend their territory. But the question does come down whether or not Syria has that right for themselves. I personally believe that Israel should have joined the Syrian government when all these terrorist groups were coming against Syria and helped them to liberate the country from ISIS and from the different jihadist factions, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra. After all, it's kind of like, for example, if you think about it in this light here, if your mother lives on the other side of town and there is a bunch of thugs breaking into her house and pillaging everything she has, raping her, beating her, nearly lifeless, would you do anything about it, or would you just let your mother sit over there and this happen and say, oh, by the way, we have to defend our house over here. Sorry, Mom, you're on your own. And by the way, I think we'll go ahead and send some money and some weapons to those terrorist groups that are attacking your mother's house to begin with. Or maybe we should say, I don't know how we'd put this, but the point is, all the mothers of Israel, Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah, all four of the mothers that make up the 12 tribes of Israel are from Syria. Did we forget that Jacob was sent by his father or his mother, Rebecca, to her brother's house, Laban, to get his wife? And he goes to Syria to do just exactly that. Do we forget the fact that even Abraham, it's written in the Bible that Abraham was a Syrian? And I realize that that doesn't mean that everyone in Syria is related to the Jewish people. But after all, we have a lot of kindred there, especially amongst the Christian community inside of Syria too. This is why I look at this from a biblical perspective. We should stand up for the Syrian people. We shouldn't be over there attacking them, or at least not allowing them to be attacked anyway. All right, so Israel considers Iran their enemy. That's a different story, okay? I understand that. But I don't think the way we're going about it is going to solve anything. And now that Russia has sent the S-300 there to not so much to defend the Syrian government from Israel, but in Russia's view, this was to help protect Russian assets of not being shot down or mistakenly identified as an enemy aircraft and them losing their own manpower. You have to watch the verbiage of President Putin. He is very much pro-Israeli government and has allowed the attacking of his own ally, Iran, inside of Syria. It shows that President Putin is more loyal to Israel than he is to Iran. And I guess if I was in his shoes, I would probably be doing the same. But when it comes to Russia, President Putin has to give a response to his own people in his own country as they lose their own people due to the results of the downing of their plane, because Syria has such old technology they can't differentiate between that of a Russian plane and that of an Israeli plane. Now, I don't like the idea that Israeli planes get shot down, but I don't like the idea either of my people shooting at a country that we should not be involved with. And we keep changing the rules. At one point, Prime Minister Netanyahu stated that Iran could not be anywhere more than, I think it was 100 kilometers to the border of Israel. Well, Russia tried to honor this and pull the Iranian forces away from the border of Israel. But then that all changed. Now it's nowhere in the country. But what we're not looking at, friends, is why Israel is doing what they're doing in the first place. Not the people of Israel, mind you. You know, that's kind of the way Netanyahu does when it comes to Iran. He says, we're not against the Iranian people, we're only against the Iranian regime. Well, I kind of look at the same thing because I see that my people have been hijacked by a very sinister government that is nothing but Jesuit puppets. Nothing but there to help the West secure the gas and oil pipelines to be ran through the country of Syria right into the port of Haifa. So it's not about anything else but money. Who's going to profit from making sure the gas pipeline comes through the country of Syria, either to the Western backers or to the Russian backers? You would think, though, that Syria would have a right to choose that for themselves. And if truly they wanted to avoid dealing with Syria, the United States already has Iraq under its own control, and Jordan is very much more pro-Vatican and pro-Israel in the respect that they could have diverted the pipeline, come right down through Iraq, through the country of Jordan, and then work their way out to the port of Haifa. Why not do it that way? I would be supportive of that as well. You know, I'm not against the fact that the United States and Israelis would like to have the pipeline so that they can benefit from this Silk Road initiative that's being constructed. But I guess the fact that if you have to go down and then back up again, well, that's millions and millions of more dollars in construction that they didn't want to spend. They are looking for the shortest route. But the Syrian people have to be the ones that agree to this. It's a democratic country. But of course, when that couldn't be negotiated out, well, let's just raise up the terrorists. We'll spend more money blowing up the country than it would have been just to move the pipeline through Iraq and through Jordan and then into Israel. Does anyone ever think about the cost of war? Not to mention the innocent lives that are dying as a result? No. Seems like no one really cares. And by the way, Russia sending the S-300 system there is a message to the West. And I don't support Russia in this either. And that is, Russia's not going to give up until they also have control of this gas pipeline, because it is big bucks to them. After all, the sanctions that's been put on Russia to cripple their own economy from all the nations around the world, sponsored by the United States, has had its own impact. So Russia needs that ace card there, because already they're being sanctioned to where all the people do not buy their oil and gas as it is. And now President Trump is trying to even get the European Union not to purchase gas and oil from Russia, further isolating the nation. So Russia's flexing its own muscle to show that it can be reckoned with. In the end, what's it going to turn into? One big massive war in the Middle East that I am afraid is going to hit us right here at home in the United States. This is why I try to say the things that I do, friends. It's not that I am definitely not anti-American nor anti-Israel, either one. But I see on both sides, doesn't matter if it's Israel or Russia or the United States, they're all for one objective, and that is who's going to make all the money from what's going on. And after all, the weapons of war, well, that's money as well. So maybe that's why they really didn't care about trying to topple Bashar al-Assad, because before they build the gas pipeline, they could make a lot of billions and trillions of dollars blowing up everybody by spending all this money on weapons of war and selling all that instead. If you only knew, if you only knew. You know, I spent too many years in the intelligence community. I know good and well what they do. And the way they pay for it, though, by the way, is off of the innocent people around the world that are hooked on drugs. Yes, they ship those drugs in, sell those drugs to the poor Americans. It's not tax dollars that's really needed to fund all these wars. Well, it is tax dollars when it comes to the war weapons we need for our own military. But when it comes to funding all these terrorist groups over in the Middle East and other places in the world, well, that's when we ship in the drugs from different parts of the world, including Afghanistan, including Vietnam, including that of Central and South America. Maybe this is also another reason why right now Venezuela is being targeted by the U.S., because we got to make sure we control everything. And there's a lot of natural resources there, by the way, and so we got to crush them down too. It's really, really beginning to just gets on your nerves after a while to see all the evil in the world. And oh, by the way, remember not too long ago, Russia also is pumping out their own cocaine from South America there. I guess they're selling it on the streets in Russia too, because, by the way, they got to supply their own set of mercenaries around the world. You can't have that tax trail being seen anywhere. This is one reason, by the way, you've not gone to a cashless society. And oddly enough, I happen to know the politicians, not all of the politicians by no means, but of course I do know a group of elite politicians that were very much involved in all these operations. And sometimes you may wonder why, even like when my wife writes about President Trump and stuff, and some people are not very happy about the things that she's saying, you would be shocked to know that those things that have been going on since President Kennedy, and by the way, Kennedy was not the one trying to launder all the drug money. He was trying to end this and bring about some peace in the world. He's probably the only Catholic president that I ever liked. But since his time, since his death, and even before his time, the drug smuggling, money laundering, weapon supplying to all the different guerrilla fighting factions around the world has been done through exactly that. Drug money. And yeah, the politicians are right there as well. And I'm already starting to link in the mega churches. Yeah, there's some evidence about the mega churches as well. In fact, when you come to the Kansas conference on December the 2nd, you'll find out about those things too. Speaking of conferences, and I'll go to that at the end of the broadcast, but we are doing a conference in Pensacola, Florida next weekend. It'll be a one-day only from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m., and that'll be right there, Pensacola, Florida. It's at a hotel there, Holiday Inn Suites on I-10 West. I'll give you the information here at the end of the broadcast. That is very limited seating, too, so we'll be talking about that in a little bit. U.S. coalition provided military support to terrorists, a Syrian foreign minister has claimed, and of course that's nothing new. We see things like that a lot. Another big issue that's going on, Kiev, they talked about measures to strengthen the presence of the Sea of Azov, and that is still ongoing. The United States building a military base. The U.S. Seabees are in Ukraine building a military base there already. It says here the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Ukraine increases the presence on the water area of the Sea of Azov, said the head of the Department of Arsen Avkov. According to him, such measures are necessary because Russia continues to attack the sovereignty of Ukraine. This is why we are increasing the presence of the Interior Ministry units, namely the components of the State Service for Emergency Situations, the State Border Service. And you can see right here in this particular photograph here on another news stories there, this were two more ships that entered into the Sea of Azov. And you got to understand, the Sea of Azov is a very shallow water there, 14 meters at the deepest part of it. You could get a ship in there, but you've got to be very careful the channels you go in. It really lets me know that there's some major forces in preparation for a major war. And I believe that Syria is only going to be where it all starts at, but then it will continue to spread out. China is taking steps towards precision warheads for an unstoppable nuclear weapon, state media says. Their hypersonic aircraft designs tested with adjustable speed enable better flight control and improvement aiming accuracy. They also show here in this particular video here the testing of this missile. And much like that of Russia, it is a supersonic missile, and Russia claims that the U.S. has no way to stop the missile that they have developed because it is supersonic. And we are finding out that now China has successfully tested the same type of missile. I know the United States is trying to find ways to be able to knock that type of missile out of the air. And of course, let's hope they do, because the way things are going right now in the world, if something doesn't change soon, we may see those types of missiles raining down, unfortunately, here in the United States. It was shared with me by a friend in Israel, too, that did say, you know, if this type of stuff begins to happen, and he warned me that it very well could happen, and he did tell me that there is no end to what's going to happen in Syria. And he did let me know that they are going to take Syria down. He said Israel will take out Iran. They will be helped by Saudi Arabia and Jordan. And he shared with me as well that the United States, Germany, UK, and France will take on Syria and Russia. If Russia doesn't back down, they will take on them and bring them down. And he said it's going to happen. He says, and unfortunately, the United States will not escape. Mainland United States will not escape this conflict. He said, if this is the way it goes. He did share with me, and this is a man that is very much in the know of what is going on inside of Israel. And he said it is all over the oil and gas pipeline, that the West is determined that it comes through their control through Syria, and the only way they can do that is to remove Bashar al-Assad from power and set up their own puppeteers, like they did in Iraq many years ago when they put in Saddam Hussein. Now we are faced again with another situation where they're trying to replace the government head so they can control this. And this is why Russia also has worked so diligently to keep Bashar al-Assad in power. And it is amazing the lengths that they will go to in covering things up and doing false flags and false chemical attacks. And how many people have got to die? I mean, have you ever thought to ask yourself the question? I had somebody on Twitter, you stand for everybody and except Israel, should change your name. No, I stand for the Israeli people. The thing is, I stand for the Israeli people that truly want peace, that want to see the coming of the Messiah. That's why I did the video. In fact, if you've not seen the video, you should watch it. The video that we did yesterday, although it does go into biblical aspects, you really should watch it. It doesn't matter if you're a Jew, Muslim, or Christian. You need to see the video there, because that video from yesterday, I really deal with the issue about what side would you be on. And I compare it to 2,000 years ago, because the issue is 2,000 years ago, Israel had a pact with the Romans. The Romans, of course, turn on them in the end, but they have a pact with the Romans. And, of course, the same way they were doing then, they're doing exactly the same thing today. The only difference is technology. Sanhedrin courts, people being drug into the synagogues by the priests there to be their judges over the state matters. Everything's still the same. Crooked government. Yeah, we had a crooked government 2,000 years ago too. How do you think we ended up with a covenant with Rome 2,000 years ago? Well, the Maccabees, yeah, they did one good thing. They helped liberate the temple, but then they made a covenant with the Romans, which only brought idolatry into Israel. You know, things have not changed, friends. In every commandment that Moses ever made to the children of Israel, you know, treat your neighbor as yourself. Don't covet your neighbor's wife. Don't covet his property. You know, love your neighbor as yourself. Everything. It's totally the opposite too. And what gets me is that the Christian people that's supposed to truly know Yeshua, if this is why I really say this, if they had been 2,000 years ago, would they be supporting Yeshua and those that were believing his message, or would they be supporting the hierarchy of the government, the state of Israel, so to speak, and supporting all the wars and things like that? Because Jesus was reaching out to the, he had the Syrian people coming across the border into the state of Israel back then, and what was he doing? Healing their sick. He wasn't giving them cash to go buy weapons to kill somebody else. So what side would you be on? You have to think about it. There's a lot of believers, Jewish believers, that believe Yeshua is the Messiah. And this is what makes them happy. But they're under a threat of being thrown out of the country and their citizenship being revoked because of their choice, their freedom of choice to choose to believe that Yeshua is the Messiah. So they're under threat of being revoked. I got a lot of friends there. But I'll always notice, it's only my Jewish friends that were Jews to begin with, but they converted to Christianity. They're the ones that are always under fear of being thrown out of the country if they're discovered, or if the government, they try to lay really low. It's not the evangelicals that come visit over there, decide to move there, and they've been there for the last 10 years, can't really get citizenship because they are Christians, and they have no problem. But the point is that the majority of the evangelical community sides with the state of Israel to sponsor weapons, to kill people, to kill the Christian community in Syria, and that's all okay. Well, you definitely are on the side that Jesus was on, because the state put him to death. And they rounded up all the believers and were putting them in jail. It's not changed, friends. Same thing's going on today. It's just a different time period is all. Now, I agree that Israel was meant to go back to their homeland. Don't get me wrong. I agree with that. They were meant to go back to their homeland, but we were also told they would go back blind. And they wouldn't receive their sight until Esau is brought down. Isn't that funny? Esau's got to be brought down first, which is the Romans of today. When he's brought down, then their eyes will be open and they can see who indeed the Messiah really is. So what side are you on? But no, and that's funny. Thou shalt not kill. It doesn't say murder in Hebrew. No, it doesn't. It says thou shalt not kill. Oh, so it's okay. Kill the neighbors anyway. Syria was not a threat to the state of Israel. Not a threat at all. At any rate, besides China here, we also have another issue that's breaking as well. Actually breaking today. The Serbian troops are put on high alert, combat alert no less. Serbian President Alexander Vučić gave orders to bring the armed forces of the country into a state of high combat readiness. All special and special units of the Ministry of Internal Affairs are also listed in full combat readiness. Such an order was given after Kosovo special forces took up the approaches of the accumulation of the lake of the Gazivode, the HPGB, which is controlled by Belgrade. Earlier, about 60 fighters of special forces of the Ministry of Interior Affairs of Kosovo took positions near the lake and entered the center of the ecology and sport near the dam. Now, I just saw that right before that, and I'll show you where this is all going down here. As you can see here on the map here, you got Italy over here to the west, you got Bosnia, Serbia, Kosovo, little tiny country there. But they sent special forces in. Now you have to understand, this is really what gets weird. Serbia is pretty much kind of loyal to Russia. That's why I find this interesting, what's going on. Let's see if I can find that lake there. I know it's somewhere, I know it's right here on the border here, somewhere with Serbia. And maybe we can, well, I can't see it myself, but I do know, I was looking at it earlier there, somewhere on the border here with Kosovo and Serbia there's a big lake there. It's kind of like a river that's been dammed up, turned into a lake, and they have sent their special forces there. Don't know how this is going to play out yet, but again, we are watching how these things are going there. All right, let me take you to IsraeliNewsLive.org. And by the way, if you want to help support the broadcast, you can. You can see right there on the right-hand side of the page our donate button there where you can help be a part of this. Pensacola Conference right here. We have it under breaking news here, Pensacola Conference. If you click on this link right here, it will tell you about the conference. It tells you what to be able to do to register. We only have 50 seats available in this conference. They will not last long. We are also having to do a charge for the conference. It's a $20 registration fee. It is non-refundable. Again, we never wanted to charge for any conference, but what happens is when we have limited seating, people register, and about a third, 25% to a third, end up never showing up. So we end up, it serves two purposes. One, then people that would have liked to have came could not come. Say if 100 people wanted to register to come, they wouldn't be able to come because the people that got there first don't show up. A few people will let you know, but normally not in time enough, especially with only a week's notice. It becomes a major issue there. So we'll use the registration fee. It helps cover the cost for traveling and also for the facility itself and the things that we would be bringing for that particular purpose there. It is from 12 noon, as it says right here on the page there, from 12 noon to 8 p.m. It'd be me and my wife both speaking. It's the very subjects we've been speaking on already inside of the Tennessee conference. And so, but we know there's a lot of people along the Gulf Coast area there that would probably like to come. The hotel itself, we have a link on there for the Holiday Inn Express. They did tell me today they have about 18 rooms left. If you're coming from an out of town, you need to stay overnight. And they said, but that is very limited. There's a lot of events going on, I think, that weekend. There are other hotels there in the area there. If it doesn't work out there, I think it's $119 for Saturday night and $99 for Sunday night if you want to stay. I made it as a link where all you got to do is click on it. It'll go straight to the hotel where you can contact them, plus their phone number is already there. I put their prices in there as well. But I also noted on here, if you're coming to this conference, before you purchase your ticket, which will only be by doing a donation here, you need to put down in the comment right immediately on this article, we are coming. Let me know you're coming. Let me know how many of you will be in your party. If it's just you and your husband or your wife, or if you've got a couple of friends that are coming, note that, because that's how I will determine who has been the first ones. Because once we get to 50, we'll have to cut it off. And I will actually, once we get to 50 on here, I will then comment in the article, or I will put a note at the top. The conference is sold to capacity. The way we're doing the fee for this is simply by going to the donate section on the website. But what's very important, and I put the notes in here so you can see it in nice bold print. Let me blow this up for you, those that are listening here today. I put on here where you click on the donate button. I have actually a direct link to the donate button, but it's $20 per person. Be sure not to check the box that makes it a monthly donation. Sometimes people do that, and if you check it as a monthly donation, I can't change it on my end. That's something you would have to do. Unless it's just something God lays on your heart, you want to do more than just coming to the conference. All right? But I also put in here, add special, the next page will have a section called Add Special Instructions to the Seller. And I put on here, you must include the words Pensacola Conference, because I have to know that you are specifically making the donation for this conference. There's people that from time to time are sending us donations of $20 or $10 here and there. And I don't know if you don't put in there in the area where it says add special instructions to seller. If you don't include that on there, I have no idea this is why you gave the donation. There is no refunds, but if we reach capacity and you have sent money in, and we see that we've reached capacity, we will refund the money for anyone that sends money in when we reach capacity. Again, the website itself will have on here, sold out in bold print, right under Pensacola Conference once we have maxed out. I expect that it'll probably max out within 1 or 2 days. So just to let you know now that will probably be the case. There's only 50 seats available, and that normally goes very, very rapidly. So anyway, God bless you. We do love you. Thank you for watching. And of course, if you want to support the ministry, you can do so. You can actually come right here to our website, IsraeliNewsLive.org. And that's where you can actually be a part of helping this ministry, where you can donate right there on the screen. Or you can do it either way by patreon.com/IsraeliNewsLive. Both ways are possibilities. And we thank you for your support in helping keeping this broadcast alive and on the air. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Blessings to you all. And we're going to be actually doing a video either today or tomorrow with my wife on the olive tree. And hopefully we'll do that. But I think it's going to actually air on her channel, Rise Up Children of God. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live. Erev Tov.